The first mistake we make is that we believe our thoughts. Our thoughts say, you aren't good enough. We feel inadequate. Our thoughts say, something bad is going to happen. We feel afraid. Our thoughts say, that person really doesn't like you. We feel rejected. Our thoughts say, they shouldn't have done that. We feel angry. Our thoughts say, why is this taking so long? We feel frustrated. Now, believing everything our thoughts say is not a good idea because sometimes our thoughts just don't say nice things, or sometimes our thoughts say things that aren't really even true, or sometimes our thoughts say things that are true but just aren't what we need to be hearing in this moment. The second mistake we make is that we try and fight our thoughts. Our thoughts say, you aren't good enough. And we say, well, yes, I am. I did X, Y, Z, and those are all good things. And our thoughts say, well, you didn't really do such a great job of those after all anyway. And we say, but yeah, this so-and-so said that I did well. Our thoughts say, well, you really believe them? And anyway, okay, maybe you did do a good job of one thing. Good luck, it happens sometimes. But you made all of these other mistakes. And back and forth we go around and around in circles, and it's an argument that doesn't end. Now, the third mistake we make is that we run away from our thoughts, or we try and distract ourselves. So our thoughts say you aren't good enough, or something bad is going to happen, and we pull out our phones and we go on social media, kill time on the internet. Before we know it, 4 hours have passed, it's past midnight. We don't know how we'll wake up tomorrow morning. And all the while there's this gnawing feeling that underneath it something just isn't right. So we believe our thoughts, our moods are always going up and down, changing with our thoughts. We fight our thoughts, it goes round and round, it doesn't end. We distract ourselves from our thoughts and we don't really feel good. Lose, lose, lose situation. What do? In thought-watching meditation, rather than trying to change our thoughts, we change our relationship with our thoughts. So we aren't disproving the thoughts, we're saying why they aren't true. That's something that is done more in cognitive behavior therapy. We're also not trying to stop thinking. What we are doing is we're holding our thoughts in a compassionate way, and we're becoming the owner of our thoughts rather than being controlled by them. What does this mean and what does it look like? So the best way of understanding this really is through experiencing it, which is what I'll guide you through in this series and the upcoming videos. I will give an analogy so that you can get some kind of understanding of it now, just enough to motivate you to actually put in the work. I taught young children for a number of years. Now, one day I was bringing my students back inside from the playground, and one little boy had a meltdown as we were walking inside, and he said, oh, I really want to play longer. We haven't been out here for long enough at all. It's only been such a short time. I want to stay longer. Now, were I to get caught up in what he was saying, I might say, you know what, okay, fine, I'll give you another 5 minutes, but then we really have to go inside. And then the 5 minutes would be up, and he'd be like, oh, just another 2 minutes, please, please, please. Or I might have argued with him and said, what do you mean it hasn't been long enough? We've been out here for 20 minutes already. We have so many things we need to do still. And maybe he'd argue back, maybe he wouldn't. But either way, not a very helpful approach. Now what I actually did was I held his hand and said, you really want to stay out here longer. And as I said that to him, I continued walking with him back into school. So I validated what he was saying. But at the same time, I remembered that I'm the teacher and I'm responsible for helping these kids learn and showing them where they need to be. Now that's how we want to relate to our thoughts. We don't want to argue with them or get caught up in them. We want to acknowledge them in a kind and compassionate way, validate them, while at the same time continuing with what it is we really want to be doing. For example, Right now, I am recording an introduction to thought watching meditation. Now, let's say I have a thought that says, you just made a mistake, this is really not coming out good, or nobody's really going to watch this anyway. So I won't get caught up in that thought and say, oh, maybe it's really not good, maybe I should just stop right here. I won't either try and argue with the thought and be like, well, maybe people really will watch it, or how do I know until I try? I'm not even going to go into that. I'll just say, you're feeling doubt right now. I'll acknowledge the feeling, validate it, and still continue recording. Now, this is what thought watching meditation is about. This is what we're going to be doing in this series. In the moment when you're having negative or self-defeating thoughts, it can be difficult to do. We can try and step out of our thoughts, but we still just feel stuck in them. We still don't feel good. It's something that we really need to practice on its own. There are a number of different approaches to this, or methods of doing it, all really accomplishing the same thing, but using different visualizations. I'll guide you through a few different exercises, a few different guided meditations that will all be similar in content, but just different, slightly different methods. Most people have one or other that they relate to most, and some that maybe don't resonate or don't really work. I recommend trying them all, finding the one that really works best for you, and then using that on a regular basis. It is an exercise, it is something that you get better at, and when you take the time to do it following a guided practice for 10 or 20 or 30 minutes a day, preferably, or even every other day, you'll find that when you're in those situations that you really need it, it will be easier to use it. You'll already have built up this muscle.